Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 4. I am Uyaniakan, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiako, and let's take a look at the headlines. President Buhari reacts to death of former IGP Tafawa Balogun. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says local arms production is key to tackling insecurity. Plus, China fires missiles over Taiwan as Beijing retaliates against Pelosi's visit. We'll bring you details of the stories and more in a moment. First in the news this afternoon is a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has joined the family, friends and associates in mourning the death of former Inspector General of Police IGP Mustapha Balogun. In a condolence message by his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, in Abuja, the president also mourned with the Nigeria Police Force, an institution Balogun spent the better part of his life serving. Buhari recalled that Balogun, during his tenure as IGP, had a penchant for boosting the morale of officers and men in the force, which had been acknowledged by those who served under him. According to the president, his thoughts and prayers are with the family, the government and the people of Osun, as well as former colleagues of the deceased police chief. He prayed for the repose of the soul of the departed. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated two of his aides, Sarki Abba and Senior Special Assistant on Household and Domestic Matters, and Ambassador Lawal Kazuri, the State Chief of Protocol, on being conferred with the highest civilian national honors of the Niger Republic. Buhari's congratulatory message was released in a statement by Garba Shehu, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. The President, who received the awardees when they brought him the certificates and medals of honor given to them, said he considered the honor to them as emblematic of the long-standing mutual friendship between the two nations and their peoples, and thanked President Muhammadu Bazoum and Nigerians for the recognition. President Buhari also extended felicitations to Governor Badaro Abubakar of Jigawa State, Mohammed Matawali of Zamfara State, businessman Aliko Dangote, President of Dangote Group, and Abdul Samad Rabiu, President of BUA Group, who were also conferred with Niger's national honors at the Independence Day ceremony. In another development, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has made the case for the local production of military hardware, especially armament. He argued that the move would keep the Nigerian military many steps ahead of non-state actors who have fueled the country's asymmetric warfare over the years. The Vice President also made a case for local weapons manufacturing, saying it will ensure the development of Nigeria's military-industrial complex. According to a statement by his Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, Laulu Akande, Osinbajo stated this after receiving a presentation on defense transformation and national security, a strategic option for Nigeria of the future by the National Defense College Course 30 participants during a virtual interaction. While commending the course participants for their efforts in proposing innovations in the defense sector, Osibajo emphasized the need for transparency in the management of resources meant for the acquisition of hardware for defense and security agencies. On behalf of the course 30 participants, Colonel Adamu proposed, among other things, the restructuring of the Ministry of Defense to contain emerging threats to defense and security. He also prayed for the speedy recovery of the Vice President, who is still recuperating, while thanking him for the opportunity to make the presentation. Meanwhile, in a bid to ensure food sufficiency in the country, the federal government, through the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, has begun the construction of Agricultural Machinery and Equipment Development Institute in Lafia, the Nasarawa state capital. Speaking during the groundbreaking ceremony of the institute, the Executive Vice Chairman of NASENI, Mohammed Haruna, said, citing Ahmedi Nasser was part of the directives given to the agency by the President Muhammad Buhari to revolutionize farming and food processing using technology. He said NASENI had succeeded in the development of some relevant equipment and machines in the food value chain, from cultivation, planting, weeding, harvesting, post-harvest, and food preservation. Also speaking, the Chief of Staff to the President, Ibrahim Gambari, who was represented by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Foreign Affairs and Development Strategist, Abdullahi Omaki, assured that the President's administration would continue to leverage on science and technology to drive agricultural development in the country. Away from that, the federal government has promised to include the security of schools in the 2023 budget. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, made this known while speaking at the Safe Schools Summit organized by the Emergency Coordination Center in Abuja. She noted that consultations were underway with states, local governments, and critical stakeholders to identify the most transparent, effective, and accountable ways of mobilizing and that the National Financing Plan for the security and safety of schools across the country will be unveiled before the end of the third quarter of this year. She added that the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning had established a committee with members drawn from the relevant ministries, departments and agencies, including the Federal Ministry of Education, the military and other security agencies for this purpose. We move now to education, where the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, has raised an alarm over a smear campaign against its management and officers. JAM's head of public affairs and protocol, Fabian Benjamin, said the smear campaign was sponsored by those against the board's reforms, which have blocked their sources of illicit wealth. Benjamin alleged that those behind the falsehood are using a faceless non-governmental organization, NGO, to circulate the concocted allegations. On financial crimes, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the Nigeria Immigration Service, NIS, have met to ensure enhanced partnership to fight all forms of local or foreign involvement in economic and financial sabotage activities. EFCC Chairman Abdulfarashid Bawa, who visited Comptroller General of Immigration Isa Idris at the NIS headquarters in Abuja, explained that his presence was to request deeper collaboration in the war against transnational. In his remarks, Idris assured that the NIS would liaise with relevant agencies to protect and improve the Nigerian economy. He confirmed the installation of cutting-edge passenger clearance technological infrastructure that dictates wanted or suspicious persons at border crossing points. Idris reiterated the need to sustain the cordial relationship between the EFCC and NIS through regular interfaces and joint capacity building. INEC speaks on why it can't extend voter registration on electoral matters. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) says extending the voter registration exercise will hamper its preparations for the 2023 general elections. This is according to the Akwa Ibom State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Rec. Mike Igini, who spoke during an interview with journalists. He explained that the electoral umpire will also have to produce and distribute the permanent voters' cards, PVCs, to the new registrants. The INEC Rec expressed satisfaction with the recent wave of enthusiasm by Nigerians in the electoral process, likening it to what happened in the country in the lead up to the 1993 polls. Igini further said Nigerians should rather be concerned about voter turnout in the next election, despite the outcry that greeted the suspension of the registrations. Meanwhile, Governor of Adamawa State, Amadu Fintiri, has reopened the Technical Skills Acquisition Center after 8 years of abandonment. The center, located in Jibiro, Geri local government area of the state, was established during the administration of ex-governor Mutala Yako. Fintiri, during the inauguration of the Technical Skills Acquisition Center, noted the relevance of the center in igniting the productive potential of the youth in the state through entrepreneurship training. The governor also ordered the reabsorption that 2,700 trainees whose training was cut short across the 8 technical and vocational training centers before the centers went moribund be recalled and given priority to complete their training as the first batch of trainees. Back here, Senator Albert Basiakban, popularly called Oba, has officially emerged the governorship candidate of the Young Progressives Party (YPP). Exactly 5 days after Pastor Yenime Andy, the former candidate, announced his voluntary resignation. The news signed by the State Executive Secretary of YPP, Akanema, noted that Oba, who was the sole aspirant in the fresh primary ordered by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), emerged after all the delegates from each local government filed out behind him. The primaries, duly monitored by INEC, was in line with the 2022 Electoral Act, which stipulates that when a candidate voluntarily withdraws from an election, he must be substituted through a fresh primary within a specified time. At the end of the conduct of the primary, described as very peaceful, the National Secretary of YPP, Barrister Vinyeno Bamai, announced Oba as the winner of the contest and decorated him with the party's regalia for candidates, including a certificate of return. In his acceptance speech, an elated Senator Akpan promised not to disappoint his family, teaming supporters, party and the entire state as the YPP gubernatorial candidate. He pledged that he will be one of the best governors Akwa Ibom has ever had when he wins at the polls next year. Aside from INEC, the event was also witnessed by the national officers of YPP, leaders and members of Akwa Ibom campaign organization, Oba structure, his family members, friends, and associates from across party lines in the state.
On behalf of my national chairman and leadership of the State Working Committee, I officially receive all the decampees. I understand that everyone in this arena has officially declared for YPP. Those who are declared, say aye.
Aye. It was started all through the 10 federal town hall meetings that after Eke Sreta district, it will be not only the town of Uyo Sreta district, it will be the town of Itiberi federal constituency for justice and equity. And this is based on the fact that 18 federal constituency have produced a governor. This is based on the fact that Uyo Sreta constituency have produced a governor. The only federal constituency that has produced a governor in Uyo Sreta district is Itu Ibrahima federal constituency. I have told God, I will fight the cause of my people. It was on the standpoint of justice that I stepped down in 2014. And I'm also running on the standpoint of justice. That it is the turn of the Iberian federal constituency to produce a governor. I will fight your cause. I will fight your cause. And I will ask God to help me fight your cause. On my own, I can do nothing. But let it be said and let it be told that
where it is the first time since Senegal's independence in 1960 that the ruling party's group loses its absolute majority in parliament, it will have to rely on other forces in parliament to pass legislation. Reports say the opposition had hoped the elections would impose cohabitation or divided government on Sol and curb any ambitions he may have for a third term. The main opposition coalition, Yewiwi, won 56 seats, while its ally Walus Senegal won 24 seats. The Interior Ministry said the participation rate was 47%, as some 7 million Senegalese were eligible to vote in the election in order to choose between 8 coalitions. For the final results to be declared by the Constitutional Council, the competing coalitions will be given time to voice any concerns. Omolo Odinga, a veteran Kenyan political leader and one-time prime minister, has long cast himself as an anti-establishment firebrand, despite belonging to one of the country's top political dynasties. Reports say his decision to strike an alliance with his arch-rival President Uhuru Kenyatta and secure the ruling party's backing as he vies yet again for the top job in the August 9th elections risk taking the shine off his brand. Few expected Odinga and Kenyatta to shake hands and draw a line on that decades of vitriol in March 2018, known universally as the handshake. The pact stunned Odinga's colleagues and supporters, effectively leaving Kenya without an opposition. The Kenyatta and Odinga families have dominated Kenyan politics since the country won independence from Britain in 1963. Uhuru Kenyatta's father, Jomo, was the East African nation's first president, while his rival, Jaramogi Odinga, Raila's father, served as vice president.
The people of Kenya will continue, and that's why I've told the people who are running against us, Uhuru is the outgoing president of the Republic of Kenya. Leave him alone. Let him go and return in peace.
On the foreign scene, China said it fired missiles over the island of Taiwan for the first time, escalating tensions in the region as U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi arrived in Japan, whose leaders lodged a protest with Beijing after 5 projectiles landed near Japanese islands. Speaking in Tokyo, Pelosi, who accused China of trying to isolate Taiwan, pointing to the island's exclusion from international groups like the World Health Organization, added that her visit to Taiwan is about maintaining the status quo, not changing it. Pelosi was met with Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida earlier today, with their attention focused on the Taiwan Strait, where China is staging air and sea drills to protest against the U.S. Speaker's visit to Taiwan. Reports say China has previously fired missiles into waters surrounding Taiwan, a democratic island of 24 million people that the Chinese Communist Party regards as its territory, despite having never controlled it, adding that missiles flying over the island marked a significant escalation. Meanwhile, a U.S. aircraft carrier will stay in the area around Taiwan for several more days to monitor the situation. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump's legal team is in direct communication with the Justice Department officials, the first sign of talks between the two sides as the criminal probe into January 6, 2021 celebrates. The Trump team's discussions are with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., which is in charge of the investigation, and its top January 6 prosecutor Thomas Windham, with the talks revolving around whether Trump would be able to shield conversations he had while he was president from federal investigators. Reports say at this stage the conversations are focused mostly on whether any communications those witnesses from the Trump West Wing had with the former president can be kept from a federal criminal grand jury under Trump's claims of executive privilege. The people said the Justice Department has been anticipating a court fight with Trump over executive privilege. The issue has arisen as grand jury subpoenas have been issued to 2 former White House counsels, office officials, and to former Vice President Mike Pence, Chief Counsel and Chief of Staff. Still on the foreign scene, the U.S. has urged Moscow to accept a deal to free basketball player Brittany Griner, who has been sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison. The double Olympic winner was convicted of possessing and smuggling drugs after admitting to possessing cannabis oil. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said the U.S. offer was a serious proposal but gave no details. Recall that the U.S. suggested a prisoner swap involving a Russian arms trafficker, Victor Bout, known as the Merchant of Death, who is serving a 25-year prison sentence in the U.S. in exchange for Griner and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan. Still to come in the news. Chelsea signs Cucurella from Brinton. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. On our business news, the federal government will generate about 160.46 billion naira from excise duty on telecommunication services in 2023. According to the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC), the combined revenue of operators in the GSM, fixed wired and internet service providers was 3.21 trillion naira in 2021. Recall that the federal government has disclosed a plan to implement a 5% excise duty on telecom services in the nation. This was revealed by the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, during a stakeholders forum on the implementation of excise duty on telecommunication services in Nigeria. Reports say if the government implements its 5% excise duty on telecom services, it will generate the stated amount or more, adding that the amount, however, assumes that the revenue of the telcos would be static, but in real terms it could either be higher or lower depending on economic fundamentals in 2022. Still in business, federal government and technology giants Google have agreed to collaborate in preventing the use of private and unlisted YouTube channels and live streams by proscribed groups, especially terrorist organizations. The decision was reached when a Google team visited Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed in Abuja. Mohammed, in his welcome address, requested from the Google officials that channels and emails containing names of proscribed groups and their affiliates should be disallowed on Google platforms. He listed Biafra Digest TV, Umu Biafra TV, Biafra Digest, Asa Biafra TV as examples of channels that spread subversive information and contents. In health, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, BMGF, has called on relevant stakeholders to collaborate with the federal government to implement the baby-friendly initiative guidelines at the workplace by providing paid extended maternity and paternity leave. Senior Program Officer Africa, BMGF, Dr. Victor Agiero, made the call in Lagos in commemoration of the World Breastfeeding Week 2022 with the theme Step Up for Breastfeeding, Educate and Support. Speaking further, Agiero said that the foundation appreciated the coming together of key actors in the private sector to advance proven family-friendly policies that benefit organizations and their employees.
That we can to end this outbreak. That is our commitment, and that's what we're going to make sure that we do that. So, as you all know, the monkeypox outbreak has evolved rapidly and uniquely from prior outbreaks. So we are in a different, it's a different dynamic than it was the last couple of times, because monkeypox has been here in this country before. And so
still in health, the Biden administration has declared monkeypox a public health emergency with cases on the rise across the U.S. The announcement came during a briefing with the Department of Health and Human Services. The declaration follows the World Health Organization announcement last month that monkeypox is a public health emergency of international concern. Reports say since the first U.S. monkeypox case was identified in mid-May, more than 6,600 probable or confirmed cases have been detected in the United States. The cases are identified everywhere, every state except Montana and Wyoming. In sports, Alexander Usyk's much anticipated rematch against Anthony Joshua will be available to watch for free on August 20th to fans living in war-torn Ukraine. That's according to the CAT promoter Alex Kreshuk, who said Saudi Arabian organizers gifted the TV rights to Usyk's home country as a gesture of goodwill. Meanwhile, Ukraine is still under attack from Russia, who began a military assault against their neighbors on the 24th of February 2022. No fee was disclosed, but reports have valued the deal at £60 million. The 24-year-old should now be available for Chelsea's Premier League opener away to Everton on Saturday. Meanwhile, the Spain wing-back has now become Chelsea's latest pre-season signing, with Khalido Koulibaly, Raheem Sterling and Carney Chukwuemeka all having arrived at Stamford Bridge. On our entertainment news, BB Niger's Angel Smith has revealed what scares her the most about marriage. The former Big Brother Niger reality star said the fact one has to sleep with their partner without protection, despite not knowing if their partner is cheating or not, is worrisome. She added that when it's just a relationship, one can use protection but not use it in marriages. And due to the increased level of infidelity, many faithful couples end up with STDs from cheating partners. The reality TV star made the revelation in a statement. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 4. I am Oya Anyeken. Thanks for watching and do enjoy the rest of your day.